All right. That is a thing.
Yes, it is a thing, apparently.
Wow. I don't even know what words or adjectives to attach to that.
Neither do I.
Don't use the Lord's name in vain. I don't even want to sing. I'm so upset by the Carcillo suspension. I don't even have a tune in me.
Sorry. Well, I'm on Imgur, and do you watch Game of Thrones?
What? No.
Okay. Well, there's this confession bear. Said
What?
when I was a young boy, I walked in. What?
What's a confession bear?
Hello.
What is a confession bear?
Okay, so a confession. Here, I'll just link it to you. A confession bear is a meme where you basically put a confession in meme form up on the internet.
When I was a young boy, I walked in on my twin brother and sister having sex. I never told anyone because I am a dwarf and no one would believe me.
And I think this is a Game of Thrones reference.
But it's
And then
false,
you have what?
Go on.
Okay, so then look at the second comment.
When I was a young boy, my father took me to the sea to see a marching band.
Right. Do you know what that is?
No.
Okay, click on the plus right next to the upvote and downvote button.
He said, son, when you grow up, would you be the savior of the broken, the beaten, and the damned?
Yes. And then click on that plus.
Will you defeat them, your demons, and all the non-believers, and the plans they have made? Nah, I already have this job. I am the god of tits and wine.
What?
That's a great position, to be the god of tits and wine.
Well, no. So do you know the, oh, hell yeah.
Well, a noble job is a noble job.
Well, no. So do you know what that is?
No. And you know that I don't.
A young boy, my father took me into the city to see a marching band. He said, son, when you grow up, will you be the savior of the broken, the beaten, and the damned? He said, will you defeat them, your demons, and all the non-believers, the plans that they have made? Because one day I'll leave you, a phantom, to lead you in the summer, to join the black parade. Do 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 do. He said, when I was a young boy, my father. Do you not know that song at all?
When I was back there in seminary school, there was a person there who put forth the proposition that you can petition the Lord with prayer. Petition the Lord with prayer. Petition the Lord with prayer. You cannot petition the Lord with prayer! As my mother joins in on me with, Mom, would you like to come and say the second line? No? You sure? I'm having company sitting there. Okay. You should probably put some clothes on. Can you give me sanctuary? I must find a place to hide. A place for me to hide. I know, this is where My Chemical Romance got their idea for a good song, but they just didn't pull it off. I understand.
Are you kidding me? This is one of my favorite songs.
Yes,
I love this song.
Sir, the soft parade has now begun. Listen to the engines hum.
What? That's
The
such a
soft
solid album.
parade has now begun. Listen to the engines hum. People out to have some fun. Cobra on my left, leopard on my right. Out of sight. Listen, Jacob, I don't really want to go down the road of debating music because, look, the truth is whatever makes you happy, and that's kind of where I like to leave it. But I would
to each their own.
Fair. But I would like to leave you with this bit of knowledge that I would really appreciate it if you held near and dear to the front of your mind for the rest of your days.
Alright.
When all else fails, we can whip the horse's eyes and make them sleep and cry. By the way, we are recording.
Oh, yay!
Alright, sir. Well, you have broken me free from the shackles of my sadness over Daniel Carcillo. And if you were here right now, I would wash my hands and then give you a hug.
Yay! Well, thank you. I'll take a cyber hug. That'll be just fine.
I'm hugging you with my mind right now. Mm.
That was a nice hug.
Now, do you want to talk about some hockey?
I do want to talk about some hockey.
Would you like to start out with the Western Conference?
Yes, I would. I would love to talk about the Kings and the Chicago Blackhawks.
Have you noticed that these guys, all of them's guys, they've been playing like champions?
Oh man, the beginning of the series has been absolutely fantastic. They've been just great. Just absolutely great for both teams.
Not only that, but the series has taken turns already in just 6 periods. It's taken turns that you hope for in the back of your mind, but you rarely see. Who saw Chicago dominating the first 35-ish minutes, only to get slaughtered in game number 2?
I really didn't. I was hoping for an overtime game between the Hawks and the Kings because that's just fantastic overtime. And then it just like the Kings got one, and then they came out in the third. They got their second. Then they quickly got their third, and I was like, oh shit, they're actually turning it on. And then they got their fourth, and it was like done, just over.
Jeff Carter with the natural hat trick.
The Natty Hattie.
The Natty Hattie.
He didn't get 3 straight. He didn't get 3 straight.
Oh, I thought it was.
He got the first one, and then no, he got the first one, and then he got the last 2, I believe.
I will look this up as we talk about it. He had King's goal number 2 and King's goal numbers 5 and 6. So it wasn't quite the Natty Hattie. But it was still really cool. I mean, it's still really cool when a guy scores a hat trick. When he scores. It was. There's only one thing I want from the Western Conference Finals.
Yes, I agree. I agree wholeheartedly. Oh shit.
What? That you want to go to 7 games as well?
Yes. Oh, of course I wanted to go to 7 games. It's going to be a fantastic 7-game series, and I think most likely the Hawks will pull it out. But I'm silently rooting for the Kings as well.
I'm rooting for the Hawks. Want to defeat the defending champs.
Yeah, I would love for the Rangers to defeat defending champs. I just don't know if I want the Hawks to come that close to being the first repeat since the Detroit Red Wings.
Why? Oh, right. I mean, I understand that from your point of view, but wouldn't you love to see the Hawks come up short, like to just get get right to the chalice, purse their lips out to drink, and then it's ripped away by the New York Rangers.
No, because the problem with the Chicago Blackhawks fans is that they'll always make an excuse as to why they weren't treated fairly in order to win that. They would say, oh, if this would have happened or this would have happened, we would have been fine, or like something like that. Or it's like, oh, if the refs wouldn't have called this. Like they always make some sort of excuse as to why they didn't win the cup.
Jacob.
Or any game for that matter.
Jacob, I mean, this is just your version of that bullshit, so why do you care? Come on, you could come up with better reasons than that than random...
Why do I care? Because I'm the one that has to listen to all of it.
Oh, come on. You're in Milwaukee. No one even knows where Milwaukee is on the map. I want this to go 7 games, not really because I want someone to be beat up and tired before they face the Rangers in the Cup, but because I want to see 7 games of what could be the single best matchup of the entire playoffs. These two teams, as we know, are the previous 2 Cup champions, and they are, in a lot of people's minds, the 2 best teams in the NHL. They're drastically different teams, but so much star power, so much team power, so much genuine intrigue for a given individual, a given team, both the recent history and beyond that. Gosh. And they've already given us so much. Game 1 was really interesting, and then Game 2 was a tale of 2 different games, with the Kings scoring 6 unanswered goals and 5 in the third. Oh my gosh. I want more of this.
Yeah, I definitely think that this is going to be the best series of the playoffs. And that is why I hope it goes to 7 games as well, because this has been vastly entertaining hockey, and it's such even though they play 2 different styles, it's like one moment it's kind of in the Kings like grinded out sort of just big boy hockey of just mashing bodies left and right, and then at other times it'll play into the Blackhawks where it's just torrid pace up and down the ice, super fast pace with people flying and odd man rushes left and right. And that's what I think is very good about the series, is that it switches up so great that you're never really going to know what's going to happen in the game. And they're so tight together that any moment one of these teams could burst out, like we saw with Kings 6 straight goals. And I definitely think that this game should go 7, and it's going to be a fantastic amount of hockey.
I hope that this does 2 things for the Kings. I hope that it shows that Jeff Carter can be a guy who can go and score at will, and he can go and attempt to go score 30, 40, 50 goals if that's something that he wants to do. And so that opens up the Kings offense as a whole, as well as I hope that this is truly Drew Doughty's coming out party. We saw a big part of it over in Sochi, and we've certainly seen it over the last couple of years, but he's stuck in this program that wants him to, well, be a defenseman. And he can be so much more than that. He can be everything that Erik Karlsson or PK Subban are trying to be, but better. More defensively oriented, but still that catalyst from the back end. And not catalyst, somebody who steps up in a big moment to do something, but somebody who is cranking the engine with every shift. A guy who's playing 25, 27 minutes. And just every shift he's out there, you can't not see him. And it'll harken back because we're so far removed, but the late 90s, early 2000s run of defensemen where it seemed like every team had one of these franchise type defensemen who could pretty much do it all in some regard.
Yeah, when you first said Drew Doughty coming out party, I was thinking, what do you mean coming out? He's already a household name in the NHL. Like, you talk about Drew Doughty and everybody knows what kind of player he is, but I totally get what you're saying about this guy who's able to put up not necessarily Ryan Suter-esque minutes, but still get pretty darn near close to those minutes and just be a five-tool defenseman, but not thought of just as a defenseman, but also thought as an offensive talent. And I definitely think that hopefully this series, and if they make it to the next round, that series will show that his offensive capability and show the Kings that, hey, listen, this is a guy that you need to be, basically you just tell him, go out there and do you do you, and he'll be able to just do whatever he needs to and show all of his tools that he has in his arsenal.
Right, which is what the Sens and the Habs have done with their respective Karlsson and Subban. So,
yep.
One great dynamic that might help allow the Kings to give Doughty that freedom and Carter that freedom is if they re-sign Marian Gaborik. Now, he'll be at 33. He will have had 2 major contracts, and he is on the downside of his career. However, if there's one thing that Marian Gaborik has done as an LA King, it's, score goals. So apparently he's still pretty darn good at that. And the Kings need some offensive help. And I hope Marian Gaborik, and listen, I'm a Ranger fan who enjoyed watching Marian Gaborik. I never thought that he was going to be anything more than, Marian Gaborik. He was no savior. If he is able to re-sign with the Kings, he could just be one of the boys, just a cog in the wheel, and that's probably the kind of player he was best suited to be the entire time anyway. And it would be great to see somebody finally playing the system, play on a team best suited for them.
Yeah. I think if the Kings can do it, they should sign him to a 4-year, $21 million contract where it's $6 million per year his first 2 years, and then it drops down to $5 million in his third year, and then it's $4 for his final year. Because if they send him to 4-year deal, he's making $4 million at 37. That's still a damn good deal. I mean, and it's for both teams. And so I think if the Kings can do it, I think that's the way that they should go, the route that they should go. I just don't know if that's officially able to be done because of the new CBA agreement.
Well, let's see. The Kings for 2014-15 have 18 players with just under $9 million left in cap space. They have several RFAs in Clifford, Pearson, Toffoli, Nolan, and Dwight to consider.
Oh, Jesus.
They probably will not bring back Willie Mitchell and Matt Green, who are UFAs. They also have Martin Jones, who's RFA. So they need. Look, the Kings don't need to do a lot to their roster, right? They are already 18 strong, but they don't have a ton of room to work with. But Marian Gaborik can still fit into the fold at that $4 to $6 million range for however many seasons, and they're still going to have that buffer that all teams like to have of $1 to $3 million to play with during the season.
Exactly.
So that we've run out of words.
I mean, basically, best thing for the LA Kings, Marian Gaborik, and the entire NHL as a whole is for the Kings to resign Gaborik.
I don't know about the NHL as a whole. Wouldn't the NHL as a whole like to see him getting buried in Miami?
I mean, not maybe, but I don't think so. Because yes, while the NHL would probably like to have a big name player like Gaborik down in Florida and maybe get some fans in the seats, let's be honest, the ability to market Gaborik in Miami is not nearly what it could be for them to be able to market him in LA.
It's true. In 35 games, including the playoffs, with your Los Angeles Kings, 32 points, including 16 points in all 16 games, 9 goals and 7 assists these playoffs.
So he's playing a point per game in the postseason, and he's averaging just under a point per game in his entire LA Kings career. I think that is a damn good trade for the Kings. And we said it was a damn good trade at the deadline.
Yeah, and here is a little extra info on his playoff numbers. As a Minnesota Wild, 11 games, 5 points. As a New York Ranger, 25 games, 13 points.
Woof.
So, as an LA King, he is greatly outpacing his previous 2 stops.
Yep.
All right.
If there's one mid to high profile athlete who UFA that ends up in Florida, who do you think it's going to be? It's going to go, it's way off topic / off our shoulder, but I think it's an interesting question.
Oh, I don't know. Boy.
I have 2 names in mind.
Well, why don't you go for it, and I'm gonna pull up the UFA list real quick.
Well, I have 3 now. Because I believe all 3 of them are UFAs. Actually 2 of them we already talked about before when we talked about Florida being a cap team.
Mm-hmm.
Devin Setoguchi.
He's neither what? Okay, go on.
Well, I mean, he was a big breakout player in San Jose. And then he got to
listen.
Minnesota.
I'm not trying to cut you off so much as I don't want to rehash the debate of Setoguchi's name profile. I'm just interested in your overall premise.
Gotcha. Well, Devin Setoguchi,
okay.
Dany Heatley, and Martin Havlat.
Okay.
Those are my 3 guys, because they're both guys who have worn out their welcome, and not worn out their welcome, just haven't worked out on whatever team they're on right now. And they're going to be looking for a place that, I mean, they could either A, go to a place where they're going to be just another, like we said, man on the team, getting second and third line minutes on a team, or they could go to a team like Florida, and play first line minutes and get paid like a first liner, just not be in contention for a cup.
Well, look, I don't really agree with you on any of that. Just straight up, I don't agree with the profiling. I don't agree with those players on that team. I just don't agree with any of it. However, you do raise an interesting point, because where do some of these guys go, and for how much? Like, these are all NHLers. Now, they may not be very good NHLers in my estimation, but where do they go? Dany Heatley is just coming off of a very long contract where he made $7.5 million. Is he even going to see half of that per year?
Nope.
That's a really interesting debate. That's a really interesting question to ask, because what is one of the commonalities between each of these players is that at some point in their career, they were a household name. For any length of time, at some point, they cashed in as well. And Heatley, to me, is really the only one who had any lasting gravitas. Some of that not for good reasons, some of that for his goal-scoring abilities. But either way, whatever the reasons, at this point in their careers, these guys, the treads on their tires are almost bald. And is it really worth paying some of these guys, any of these guys, $2 or $3 or $4 million, even for one season, when you could probably get a similar amount of production from a younger player, a hungrier player? And I don't mean that as an insult to the older folks. I just mean bringing up a rookie who's, wants to be in the show quite desperately. And, of course, as you all know where I'm going with this, for significantly less.
Mm. But I think in terms of Florida, it's, I mean, as much as you play for the name on the front, it's about the name on the back. And it's about players that they recognize. And in Florida, the fans aren't probably going to recognize an AHLer as much as they probably would guys like Heatley, Havlat, or Setoguchi, because they've been guys who have been on highlight reels before. And when they go, let's be honest, when they go and you hear about a new signing, you go look up YouTube videos of these guys and they see Setoguchi with the Sharks, Heatley with the Senators, and then, and maybe the Thrashers a little bit. Oh no, that was Hossa, never mind. And then Havlat with the Wild. You just see that and you're like, oh, this is the kind of guy we're getting, and then they recognize the name on the back.
No, I'm sorry. I don't think that that's a thing anymore. I don't think that fans are that easily duped anymore. I think that people know how to do their research. I think that reporters as a whole do their research.
I think reporters do.
Okay, well, fans typically get their news from a reporter of some kind. And they typically do their research much more thoroughly than they used to. And
yeah, but everybody likes to have their own opinion.
What was that?
Everybody likes to have their own opinion, and everybody likes to say, oh, this person's telling me this. Well, let me go see if they actually know what they're talking about, or they're just another dumb journalist who doesn't know what the fuck they're talking about.
Yeah, I'm sure that goes on too, but I think the tide has risen on all the boats where people, fan reporter or otherwise, are able to do their research and determine, oh, Dan Heatley went from scoring 33 goals in one season to 33 goals over 3 seasons. Probably not a good signing.
Huh. I think that it's. I
don't agree. I just don't agree with you.
I think it's. I don't know. I guess I'm looking more of it as from the team aspect of trying to get names in the fans in the seats.
Win
more so. Well, I mean, yeah, I know that's the number one reason, but you got to get people to go out. You got to get people to come out when they're not, and that's been a major downfall of Florida and other teams that have been scraping the bottom of the barrel.
I think the tide has mostly turned on those kinds of signings. I think that we are starting to see the page turn on that thought process. It is no longer a labor to figure out whether or not a signing was a good idea or a bad idea, especially when it's not even for the quality of the team, it's just for name recognition. I don't agree with you, especially when it comes to Havlat and Setoguchi. I mean, those guys were not superstars at any point. Havlat had the potential, but his body broke down.
I think Setoguchi was a, maybe not a superstar, but he was definitely a star out in San Jose, and at least for the first year in Minnesota.
What team is he on now? Winnipeg?
No, he's on Winnipeg after his 3 or 4 years in Minnesota.
Okay. Did he ever pop 30?
Isn't he still? I think
yeah, he did once. Yeah, his sophomore season. Yeah. Look, that was 2008-9.
He's still young though. He's still 27.
Yeah, but he's probably an old 27.
Oh, I guess he was only on Minnesota for 2 years.
Alright. We don't agree with each other, but it still needs thought process.
Yeah.
Alright, so want to shift over to the Eastern Conference Finals?
Yes, I would love to talk about the Rangers and Canadiens.
Rangers and who? I think they're playing with themselves. It's like the other team isn't even there.
I mean, I think Dustin Tokarski would beg to differ.
Dustin Tokarski, I can barely pronounce his name. Haven't the Rangers swept them in 3 yet?
Nope, they're down. The Canadiens actually won last night. So.
Wait, what?
They actually won last night in OT, thanks to a ridiculous bounce off of Galchenyuk's body, neck, facial region.
It was an upper body injury for the win.
Truly
There will be no suspension forthcoming because he decided to celebrate the event instead.
Yeah.
Alright. So, we're gonna have to get into the Carcillo and the Prustness, but let's first talk about the other events in the series. So, I did not get a chance to really see Game 1, where the Rangers were the only team that showed up and won 7-2, because I was out playing my own playoff game, and our season mercifully came to an end. No, it was time for that season to end. It's okay. I got to see friends and play some hockey. I'm satisfied.
That's fun.
Yeah, it is. In any event, Game 2, I see a lot of people are saying that the Canadiens probably should have won that game. Reasonable assertion, certainly irrational, but incorrect. Not only because the Rangers won that game, but because the Rangers have been the better team this entire series. They've been much more on the hustle. They've corralled the rebounds in both zones much more thoroughly. They've retained possession. They've regained possession. They've done all of the things. All of the outshooting, all of the resisting of doing stupid things. PK Subban. And I love Subban, so. And in Game 3, I thought was the culmination of clusterfuckness in a single game. Without even going to the shenanigans, I can sum up for you what I just tried to say. And what I just tried to say was, go back and watch all 5 of those goals. None of them were legit goals. All of them are the luckiest, flukiest, you can't count on it, don't even try it again type goal. As well as, go back and watch just about any 5-minute segment in that game, and you'll see each goaltender, Dustin Tokarski and Henrik Lundqvist, make outstanding saves that probably should have been goals. Oh my gosh. And then it was firewagon hockey for minutes at a time in each period. This was one of the most exciting and interesting games I had seen in a long time. And my final point, before I turn it over to you, big boy, is imagine if that was like Game 7, especially in the Cup final.
So I'm going to comment on the Game 7. If it were Game 7, the game itself would have been absolutely astounding to watch. The intensity, it would have been for sure an instant classic. And it would have been absolutely just like adrenaline jumping out of your seat for the entire game. Like, I would not be able to have sat still, especially if I was a fan of one of those two teams. But, like you said, I wholeheartedly agree with your statement about how every goal went in. Because it looked like it bounced. I mean, frickin' Hagelin's goal gets popped up off of whoever stuck his hand to block the shot. George's. Yeah, he sticks his hand out to, like, block the shot like he's frickin' playing baseball. The puck bounces up and he swats it out of the air and into the back of the net while keeping his stick below the crossbar. So that was just that was great hand-eye coordination. It's just exactly 9 times out of 10 you can't do that again. And then the frickin' both second goals bounce off of somebody's skate. I think both Montreal goals in regulation bounced off the skate. Because I think Markov's bounced off of somebody's skate or stick or leg or something. And it just, all of them were redirects off of, it was pretty much an own goal for the rest of them because it bounced off of somebody on that goaltender's team. And then Galchenyuk's the game winner, bounces off of his neck and in. And it's just like, if I was a fan of either of those teams, I would just be pulling my hair out based off of how lucky those goals would be, especially if it were Game 7 of a Cup final. And it would just be, oh man, that would have been absolutely fantastic. But yeah, it's the Rangers. This has been the Rangers series so far. And it looks like that the Canadians are just emotionally and physically drained after their Game 7 win against Boston. It's like you fight. It's like you give it your absolute all to beat your biggest rival, and then you come into the semi-rested team, and they're just mopping the floor with you. And it's just that's what the Canadians are doing, and the Rangers are dominating them in every single aspect of the game. Tokarski has totally stepped up in absence of Price. But King Henrik is
how
still
about that?
playing better.
Tokarski has been an absolute stud.
I think part of the reason why the Canadians are going to lose the series is because they don't have Price, but it could be a lot worse if Tokarski was not playing as well as he is.
Dude, if Budaj was in that, right?
If Budaj was in that, it would be 7-2 finals every game.
Oh, that would be sweet. Look, the Habs can't hang with the Rangers, and I think a lot of it has to do with the fact that one team is at least reasonably refreshed, and the other team is not at all. Exactly. And this late into the season, that is quite a toll. That is quite a disparity. But I think that the Rangers are also just a better team, at least right now. Better job of neutralizing the other team's attacks. Better job corralling rebounds on both sides of the ice. Better zone entries, better zone denials. Just better overall play. And look, it's only been 3 games. It can certainly change. We've certainly seen stranger things, right, San Jose? So, I'm very confident, but I understand that it's not over.
Exactly.
And this is the 3rd time the Rangers have lost a game that they should have won. This has happened in the 3rd or 4th game in each series. I believe it was the 4th game of the Pittsburgh series where they lost 2-0, both of them off of oddball breakaway goals after the Rangers outshot the Penguins 2 or 3-1. Mm-hmm. It was a similar type game in game 3 or 4 against the Flyers. And last night, outshooting and outplaying the Habs by a wide margin. It's frustrating to see that happen to the Rangers once, let alone now thrice. But it also gives an air of solace knowing, okay, well, we beat the Penguins 5 times. We beat the Flyers 5 times. We're going to have to beat the Habs 5 times. You know what? That's a mark of a great team. That is a mark of a great team. And you know what? I'm all about being a fan of a great team. That's just what it boils down to. I'm a Rangers fan. I've always been one. And, whoa, they're a great team. Isn't it funny how that works out?
Yeah, I think what makes teams great is their ability to bounce back from things like that. And it's also just like...
just the real point.
And it's kind of like almost like a gut check. It's like... just kind of like a kind of slap to the face. It's like, don't get complacent.
Yeah, and you know what? Going into last night's game, I was talking too much about being in the cup final. And it's understandable why, after the other team's best player goes down and you dominate the first 2 games. But it's important to be reminded once in a while of to not get too ahead of yourself, because when we're going to make it to the cup final unless things go horribly wrong, and they could, but I'm not going to count on it. No game is going to be easy against either Chicago or LA.
Right.
In fact, if somebody's going to have an easy game, it might be Chicago or LA. It sure as hell won't be the Rangers.
Mm-hmm.
So it was fun to get my head all bloated for a little while, but in the end, it's good that the Rangers probably lost the game.
Yeah. And long run, it probably is better.
Alright. So we're gonna have to have a real chat. Alright, real chat time. You ready, Jake? Carcillo time.
Carcillo time.
Alright. So we have to start from the beginning with the hit of Brandon Prust on Derek Stepan, which apparently broke his jaw. I'm not fully buying it because I see the replay where Derek Stepan was talking after he got up off the ice, headed towards the dressing room. But Brandon Prust waits too long and commits to his hit after Stepan no longer has the puck. It happens to be from Derek Stepan's blind side, and the principal point of contact is the collarbone area. I say area because it is unclear if it's the upper part of the chest or if it's the chin and it's also unclear what or who broke Derek Stepan's jaw. He came back eventually later in that period, and he ended up playing 17 and a half minutes with an assist on Kreider's late game-tying goal during this game. So, should there be a suspension to Prust? Yes, there should be, because it wasn't a clean hit, and it was a hit that goes against our rules. But did I think that it's a hit that deserves a ton of admonishment? No, but I think that's my own. I think that's my own resistance from concentrating on a thing I don't really want to concentrate on. Now, to me, it's a clear and cut issue. Give him the suspension, and we'll move on.
Yeah, I think he gets a suspension. I mean, it was a late hit. Well, like you said, it's unclear whether or not the head was the principal point of contact. It looks like his shoulder does make contact with the bottom part of his chin and things like that. So it looks like that the head does get hit but it looks like that it was a shoulder into the chest area. But yeah, I mean, it's exactly clear cut. He late hit, blindside coming across, hits him when he didn't have the puck. It's a pretty dirty hit. I think he gets 2-3 games. It's not necessarily the same as Seabrook, but I think he gets a Seabrook-esque suspension handed down to him. And yeah, I mean, I'm actually very surprised that it wasn't a penalty called up there on the ice. I think there should have been an interference call, and it could have been a 2, a 4, or a 5. Any one of those three could have been justifiable. I had no idea that he broke his jaw, so that's interesting because that's could add on a little bit more time because there's an injury to that hit. But yeah, Prust is gonna be sitting, and depending on how well the Rangers close out the series, he could be done for the season.
Now, one more thing before we get to Carcillo's suspension.
Yeah.
I want to say about Stepan's injury. So Stepan's jaw broke sometime during Game 3.
Right.
We are attempted rather to connect the dot between his jaw and Prust's shoulder, but be that as it may, he still came back and he played 17 and a half minutes during this game. The reports are that Derek Stepan is out indefinitely. To me, those two statements or those two realities are incongruous. If his jaw was broken to the point where he needed to come out, I don't believe he would have played it in the first place. A jaw that's broken, I don't think gets by any of the medical staff in the first place, let alone needs a second opinion. I am not an expert by any means in anything related to this assertion, but I don't fear losing Derek Stepan. I don't know why I would. He's already played. Am I just shielding myself from the reality of having to go with Ryan Boyle, Dom Moore, and Brad Richards as my three centers? Or is there craziness to my method?
No. I mean, here's the thing. He could have a fractured jaw, then not a broken jaw.
Right.
And, I mean, look at Getzlaf. Getzlaf broke his jaw in the first round, and he played the rest of the playoffs. So, no, I think he goes with the plexiglass visor-esque chin strap in front of him, and he's good to go for the rest of the series and potentially the next series. I think Kreider's not going to sit.
And this is part of where diagnoses that are vague leave us in a gray area where, okay, I understand that the bra is joking.
The bra's joking.
Thank you. Yep. Wow.
That's what we call a Freudian slip, ladies and gentlemen.
Oh man. That the jaw is broken, but we don't know the degree of brokenness, where it's broken, what that really means, how that impedes his ability to breathe and chew, and susceptibility to pain and further injury, and also how much he gives a flying fuck. So, I'm hoping sometime between now and Sunday evening we get more information on the status of that jaw, but I also hope that we get Derek Brassard back, who we lost after his first shift of the series. And since we haven't gotten him back and there's been no update, I am fearing that his shoulder just got destroyed. And why they haven't announced anything is probably has more to do with he could play if he could tolerate the pain and if they needed him to. You know, right. It's one of those injuries where it needs to get fixed over the summer, but he can't make it any worse by playing on it. I don't know. Sure.
It's like the Robin McClanahan bruise on the leg. It's gonna be very painful, but it won't hurt him much. It won't hurt him any worse if he plays on it.
Alright, so we've been beating around the bush. Let's talk about Carcillo. We have very different opinions on it.
Yes, we do.
I have started the last couple of topics, so sir, please take it away.
Alright, so for those of you, everybody should have seen this by now, but Daniel Carcillo got handed a 10-game suspension, an automatic 10-game suspension, for breaking Rule 40.3 of the NHL rulebook, which is physical abuse of an official. During the Brandon Prust and Dorsett fight, Carcillo was in the general vicinity, and it looked like whether he wasn't doing anything that looks like that a referee should have intervened, but it could be he was either A, getting too close to the fighting combatants, or B, he was mouthing off to Yemlin, and the referee or the linesman wanted to get in between them so that way nothing happened. But as soon as the referee put his hands on Carcillo gives him 2 punches/shoves, whatever you want to call them, more of a get off of me sort of deal. And then he gets put in the penalty box and then gets tossed for the game for laying his hands on an official. And then the Department of Player Safety said that he gets an automatic 10-game suspension. I am in the camp that Daniel Carcillo deserved his 10-game suspension, because it's not whether or not the referee should have put his hands on Carcillo, because, I mean, I can't think of any instances off the top of my head where a linesman has physically removed a player from a fight, but most of the time when you do that, you see players try to get back in a fight by skating at the player. I think PK Subban and I can think of PK or any other Canadians versus Boston Bruins last series. It's just an instance that comes to mind. But however, the difference is Carcillo, with his hand on his stick, pushes the referee away more so than trying to pull away from the referee. And I think that's a major difference between these kinds of instances and that kind of physical contact, whether or not it's actual abuse or not, is what gets him the 10 games. And then in the NHL rulebook, it states that if there's any deliberate contact with an official, then physical contact with an official, then an automatic 10-game suspension should be assessed. Whether or not there was if there was not intent to injure, it will be 10 games. If there was an intent to injure, then it would be 20 games. But yes, I am a believer that Carcillo did deserve to get the 10 games. That it's fairly not clear cut, but I mean, what Carcillo does fits exactly into the mold of what the rule says, and he got 10 games, and then both the Rangers and Carcillo is going to have to move on from there.
All right. Well, just got word that Brandon Prust has been suspended 2 games.
Yep.
The press release says Prust has been suspended for 2 games for interference on Rangers forward Derek Stepan during Game 3 of the ECF last night. And that wasn't nearly as specific as I thought it was going to be. I have not had a chance to actually watch this video, but whoops. Alright, I am going to give you the link to the video from Stepan Quintal. You mute yourself, watch it, and then when I'm done, tell us what you think.
Oh, righty.
Alright, there's the video. And I'm gonna sum up what I thought about the dealio with Carcillo. So, I do not agree with Jacob. It's really as simple as that. I understand his point of view. I think it's rational. In fact, I even think that the Department of Player Safety or the NHL, I'm unclear who handed out the suspension to Carcillo, their rationale. However, I think that this is a gross misapplication of the rule. Daniel Carcillo was in the vicinity of Dorset and Prust fight, yes. Referees and linesmen go to remove bystanders in the vicinity of fights, yes. Carcillo is standing there a few strides away from the fight. He is not even looking at the fight. If anything, he's looking at Yemelin, which is away from the fight. And his hands are at his waist, thumb underneath his stick on both hands, holding his stick at his waist, making no indications of any kind whatsoever that he is going to fight, or that he has any interest in the fight that is going on. A referee comes out of the picture, not out of nowhere, but from off camera in a heap of steam, and pushes Carcillo up against the boards with both hands and drags him to the penalty box, which is almost half the length of the rink away. I don't believe that this is an oversimplification of what happened. Yes, Carcillo is drawing at the referee, and he's drawing at Yemelin and whomever else, and yes, he could have said any of the naughty words. I understand. I also understand that his hand, particularly his right hand, looks like it jabs at the referee twice. And in the link that I provided in the show notes, as well as on the blog, that happens at the 16 and the 12-second mark. I understand that. This is still not abuse of the referee. I will not get into whether or not he said anything, don't know. The rule states that it is abuse of the referee. It was not abuse. If it had been abuse, the referee would have been on the floor, or very clearly fought with. Abuse is inignorable, is inarguable. It is clearly abuse. This is a guy who is confused and probably feels victimized why he's being singled out of this area of the ice in this fight. Why he's being dragged to the penalty box, because in this mind he hasn't done anything. And that's because he hadn't done anything. Now, I don't think that the referees have a vendetta or out to get Carcillo. I think that they saw a potential problem. They felt that they act accordingly. I think that's what went on. I think that it was simply a mistake, a gross mistake, and it landed with Carcillo trying to free himself like a person who feels victimized does. And lastly, I think it's pretty shitty that the NHL or the DOPS doesn't recognize this. They don't recognize that a referee erroneously and mistakenly and egregiously put their hands on a player to drag them away from a thing that they weren't part of or threatening to be part of. In fact, if you watch the video, Thomas Vanek ends up where Daniel Carcillo starts. Albeit, that's at the 23-second mark, and the fight is already over. I understand. But, if you juxtaposition the idea of Daniel Carcillo being in that area versus Thomas Vanek, one person might get involved in a fight and one person not, based on reputation. You can't make rulings based on reputation. Something either happened or it did not happen. And I don't agree that there is any abuse of a referee. So, be that as it may, Daniel Carcillo has the option and the ability to appeal the suspension. At this time, it is unknown if he will. He certainly has not yet. I hope that he does. But as it stands right now, he's suspended for 10 games. The Rangers have up to 11 more games in the rest of the season. And that's what I think.
All right. I would like to just comment on a couple of points you've made. And then, okay, so the first one is I don't believe that the ruling is based off of reputation. I think the linesman reaction is based off of reputation.
Okay,
and I
agree.
I think that's a key difference that you have to make, is that if the linesman does not come in with as quickly / hastily / spastically as he does, then I think Carcillo's reaction is vastly different. I think if the referee or if the linesman calmly comes in and says, "Go away, move that way," I think Carcillo does and doesn't really do anything, or he just asks, "Why do I need to move?" And then the referee can explain why he needs to move, things like that. And I think that it just doesn't happen. And I do feel like that there needs to be some sort of not blame, but reaction over to the referee and basically saying, if you don't do this, then he doesn't do this, so you're partially at fault for this. But it doesn't necessarily let Carcillo completely off the hook.
Okay. I agree with everything you said except for that last bit. My least favorite part of this, and I cut myself off because I found myself talking for a long time. The referees, in my estimation, mishandled the entire game, but in particular the first period. And it seems as though there are no repercussions coming to them. And if the NHL doesn't feel that they deserve one, well then I have an issue with that. That's as far as I'm going to go with it. But
I think very rarely though do you ever hear of officials being disciplined by the league that they referee for. I think that's kept a lot more in wraps, probably because of collective bargaining agreement between the officials and the league. And I think it's a lot more of, okay, you guys just aren't refereeing any more games, or because I don't think there are any fines or things like that for referees for mishandling. I just think it's you don't work anymore.
Fine, I can dig that, but that does, but you can apply a similar field of thought to, well, that means that Carcillo doesn't get 10 games because he was put in position. He was put into this position by the referee.
But again, it's the automatic suspension for not less than 10 games.
Okay. I'm only going to make one more point, and it's that I then disagree with how this rule is phrased. It needs to be much more specific. It cannot be so vague. That's it.
Yeah, well, that's my next point that I wanted to bring up, is that I do believe that the rule, because even though it's applied once in a very blue moon, because I mean, like we've talked about before in the pre-show, the times that this has happened, I can count on one finger in my lifetime.
Few and far between.
Exactly. So it doesn't have that, oh, well, this is constantly being applied, so we need to really look at this. This is, again, once in a blue moon sort of deal. But it's that I definitely think that the physical abuse of an official needs to be changed to physical contact with an official. Because in the rule it says any player who deliberately applies physical force to an official in any manner, excluding actions as set out in Category 1, which physical force is applied without intent to injure, or who spits on an official, shall be automatically suspended for not less than 10 games. And that does not sound like it's physical abuse. It sounds like it's a physical altercation / contact with an official. And I think that's where the phrasing needs to be made, is that it needs to be physical contact, not physical abuse. And I think it could be tightened up a little bit more as to what constitutes physical force, what constitutes without intent to injure, and things like that. I think that the language could be cleaned up a little bit more, so that way it's a little bit more black and white. But because it's so few and far between that this is set, I think that's why there's a lot of gray area in this rule as of right now.
All right. Well, what were some of the other things you wanted to talk about? What did Quintal have to say?
Well, yeah. So the DOPS video says that Prust is gone for 2 games because there is what is it? It is because that there is interference well behind the play. That there was contact with the head, whether or not there was it was a principal point of contact. There was significant injury to the head area with the broken jaw.
Interesting.
And the past history of Prust came into play. And because he's a repeat offender, they gave him 2 games.
This is all really interesting. So they blame Prust for the breaking of Stefan's jaw. I wonder how they
never said anything in the video about his broken jaw. They just said that the head was a significant part of the hit.
Oh.
It might not have been the principal point of contact, but the head had significant contact during the hit because Prust went up with his hit.
Oh, okay.
So they could find fault. They could find that it was partially to blame for, or all to blame for, of Stefan's broken jaw, but they never specifically said that Stefan's broken jaw played a significant portion in handing down the suspension.
Well, it's good to know that Prust has already ended his season.
Yep. Because the Rangers are gonna clinch on. No. Yeah.
Nope.
No.
They believe that opportunity.
They'll be in Montreal.
Yep.
They'll be in Montreal.
That's okay too.
Yep.
We can go 5. The Kings and the Hawks can go 7. And yes, please.
I'm telling you, Rangers over Hawks in 6.
Alright. So, in other news around the NHL, Yaroslav Halak has found a home, and it's on sunny Long Island.
Yes, he has, and it is on Long Island. You'll be able to see Yarrow. Well, no, not anymore, because now he's not on Long Island. He's in Brooklyn.
Nope, one more season.
Oh, there's one more season at Nassau?
Yep.
Oh, then never mind. Then he will be on the Isle.
Yep. 4 years, 4.5 per. Do I love it? No, I don't think that he is a first-tier goaltender. Is he a quality goaltender? Most certainly. I don't believe that he will be the difference whether or not the Islanders will make the playoffs next season, but boy, has he filled in a gap. Boy, oh boy.
I mean, yes, he is not the savior to all of their prayers, but he's definitely a step in the right direction for the Islanders getting better. The interesting question is going to be who is going to step up and be Halak's competition for the starting job?
Nobody. They're just gonna hope he can play 82 games.
But see, that's the problem is that, I mean, we've seen it in St. Louis and we saw it in Montreal that Halak needs that second guy to push him in order he thrives in the tandem, but when it's down to just him, it's not necessarily the best.
I don't know. It might be Kevin Poulin. Anders Nielsen. Yo no sé.
Yeah, I know. I don't know. I just think though that'll be interesting to see who the Islanders have as the backup goaltender for him. But I mean, the Islanders grabbed one of the 3 quality goaltenders that were going to hit the market this year.
That they did. Hey, maybe they'll bring back Naby just to be the backup, and so that they have another person they can overpay and reach the floor.
Yep. But hey, it's got to be better than Rick DiPietro. It's got to be better than Rick DiPietro. Let's be honest.
Who isn't?
Exactly. So that's why I think it's a right move by the Islanders to, after the absolute dismantling of the Vanek trade, it's like, okay, we made a huge frickin' mistake, but we're gonna show these guys, the fans, that we are in fact trying to move the team in a forward direction, and we're not hitting the rebuilding button.
Yeah, totally. I don't know what else to say. The Islanders are still a terrible team.
I mean, they're still, I don't know. I still think if they could free fall as much as they did from last year to this year, I think they can climb just as much from this year to next year.
I don't understand that logic.
But, I mean, they're without Molson. That's the only deal. And McDonald.
Yep.
So maybe not.
Yep.
It all depends on who well, yeah, never mind then. I scratched that statement. That is stricken from the record.
All right. No worries. All right. So let's get to our last topic.
Let's do it. This might be my favorite topic of the day.
Well, then lead it off.
So, although he had publicly, in the last coming days, he has publicly denied that he does not want the Pittsburgh Penguins GM job. There were rumors going around the hockey Twittersphere that Pierre Maguire was, interviewing for the Penguins GM job. And my gut reaction was, oh my God, who would actually want to hire Pierre Maguire? But then the more I thought about it, the more I was like, damn, that's actually a really frickin' good idea. And the more I just thought about it, the more I would love to see Pierre Maguire, both in his absolute ridiculousness of his reporting, from inside the glass and just like hearing him say all his little mannerisms that he does. But also, I mean, that guy has probably the most hockey knowledge out of anybody. He knows pretty much everything you need to know about hockey and every player in hockey, whether it's in the CHL, the WHL, the QMJHL, AHL, NHL, USHL, whatever.
If it's a hockey league, he knows everything there ever was to know about it.
If there's any mid to high tier semi-professional hockey league.
No, I'm pretty sure he was between the benches in my squirt travel team. Pretty sure that was him. He was the annoying parent.
He is the annoying parent. He is the epitome of the annoying parent. But, I mean, let's be honest though. I mean, do you know of anybody that knows more about the players in the NHL than Pierre Maguire?
No. I mean, Jeff Marek, as far as I know, gives him a run for his money, but, you know, in order to do that job with the amount of knowledge he espouses, he has to be a diligent worker and a thorough researcher and all that. And those are two things that go into being a general manager. But I don't really care about Pierre in any particular regard. So I would like to extrapolate this idea of broadcaster or scout or agent or similar type person into a general managing position. And I think that this is actually really interesting. You know, we just saw Mike Gillis, who was one of the first ever agents to become a general manager. And I am forgetting his name, but I know I've heard of several pro scouts and amateur scouts who have gone on to become general managers. I would love to see this new wave of type of person who becomes a general manager. I believe Jarmo Kekalainen is similar to the mold that I'm talking. So
Jarmo's my boy. I love him.
Well, you just like his name.
No, because I mean he was the guy that came in because he used to be the GM for the Blues, or maybe not GM, but he had something to do with the Blues. And he was the guy that drafted Backus, Oshie, Schwartz.
Yeah, he was their top scout.
Exactly. He was the guy that got everybody that makes the Blues who they are now.
Right. So this is what I'm talking about, is getting this kind of person who sees the game in a new way from a managerial point of view and starts quantifying and valuing new things. This is the mark of progression, and it doesn't always work. It's not always a good idea, but these people who hit the books like it's their job maybe because it is their job. Those are the kind of people that I would like to see in managerial positions.
I think it's a little bit more of I think this new wave is less on the business side of it. Like, it's less about the money and more about the relationship with the players that you're seeing with these GMs. With these new wave guys, it's all about, like, knowing the people. And yeah, I mean, you still need to know what the books are for your team and how much money you're willing to spend and things like that. But I think it's a lot more based on the relationship that you have with these players and finding out who they are and things like that, more so than just looking at it from a business / numerical sense.
Yeah. I have nothing to add. I just agree with you.
Okay, I think that's just one observation that I think I picked up on when we talk about these new guys coming in and things like that, and especially with the broadcasters and the agents, because that's how they make their money. Well, obviously, broadcasters have to know what they're talking about and have to be very good talking to people. The agents have to sell themselves in order to get these players, and then have contract negotiations between teams and their clients. So why not flip the script and just be on the other side of that negotiation?
You know, it also goes into who's currently the holder of information. Who currently are the people who are the sculptors and the pursuers of information. And which information are they trying to cultivate and acquire? The people who are doing the scouting, the people who are broadcasters, who need on a daily basis, a much broader and deeper base of knowledge. That's who's doing these jobs right now. You know, knowledge right now, it's not that difficult to acquire. If you have an internet connection and you know which websites to go to, it's about making sense of that data to turn it into usable knowledge. And it's the scouts and it's the broadcasters whose job is reliant on that. So it only makes sense that then they become managers, they become people in power. I see it quite that linearly, to be quite honest.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
General managers, the inside guard of hockey, they're no longer the holders of information. It's out there for everyone now. And so you see this, Yarmos and Gillis's and a lot. So yeah, it would be cool to see Pierre as a GM or an assistant GM again.
Oh. It would be.
Alright.
Alrighty.
Is that all?
That's all I got. I'm done.
Alright. For Jacob Bornt and Matt Riegler, we are signing out.
Okay.
Oh, that's sweet, sweet laughter. I'm gonna go take a poop.
Alrighty.
Bye.
Goodbye.